Hi, this is Canadian jazz singer and pianist Carol Welsman from Toronto, and you are watching me on Jazz Across the Pond with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. I hope you enjoy it. Love of mine, be my Valentine. May I have this dance with you forever. Love of mine, how our sonnets rhyme when our lonely hearts entwine together. Here's your chance for a true romance. Have I let you know that I adore you? My Valentine, timeless love of mine. Every day with you is Valentine's Day. Hold me tight and feel the sparks ignite. How your eyes enchant me in the starlight. Kiss me now, shall we take a vow? We know where this kiss will lead tonight. I've never felt like this. Something's got to give. How did I live before I met you? Sweet Valentine, timeless love of mine. Every day with you is Valentine's Day. Never felt like this. Something's got to give. How did I live before I met you? Sweet Valentine, timeless love of mine. Every day with you is Valentine's Day. Oh, love of mine, timeless Valentine. Every day with you is Valentine's Day. La 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 dee dee doo. It's Valentine's Day. La 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 lay.
Well, we've just been sat here and we've been listening to the most beautiful Be My Valentine. How very appropriate, as it's only a few days since Valentine's Day. Ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond warmly welcomes Toronto-born, internationally acclaimed vocalist pianist, a six-time Juno Award winner. Now, if you're sitting there going, Juno, well, it's Canada's answer to the Grammys, but better. Let's put it that way. A beautiful jazz singer who captivates her audience the world around with her unique ability to tell stories and spread her infectious warmth and energy through her music. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the most beautiful Carol Welsman. Welcome to our show.
Woohoo! Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. What a lovely intro.
Oh, Roger, you do gush on, don't you?
Oh,
Well, Carol, thank you for joining us today. And before we get too far along, allow me to mention that the Jazz Cat introduced me to your music several months ago. So I have taken a deep dive into your music, and I've been amazed by your voice
Oh,
You
God.
have you are certainly an accomplished composing pianist, and your phrasing is exceptional. But having said that, your voice has that smoky, sultry alto kind of contralto quality that gets to me. And the nice thing about it is that it places you in that rare air amongst my favorite vocalists, including Nina Simone, Etta James, Sarah Vaughan, Sade, Patsy Cline, Bonnie Raitt, and Claire Martin. So I am a believer.
Oh,
Now, as I've read through your biography, I've been fascinated by these music genes that you've inherited, so that our everybody watching tonight or today or in the morning, wherever they are around the world. Carol is the granddaughter of Canadian pianist and composer and music educator Frank Welsman, who was also the founder and conductor of the first iteration of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. Carol, you're also the sister of multi-award winning composer John Welsman, who has written film and television scores for production companies in both Canada and the United States. Now, as your grandfather passed 3 years before your older brother was born, neither of you had any direct contact with him.
no.
So my question to you to start things off is, what age did you become aware of your grandfather's legacy as an accomplished composing pianist? And then did his legacy serve as an inspiration for you at an early age? It's three parts, but you can handle it. And did either one of your parents have a musical bone in their body?
Oh, yes, very much so. Well, to start off, my grandmother was very much alive when I was growing up, and
Oh, cool.
so my grandfather married Violet Courtney, who was a musician, and he had 5 children, and then his wife died, and he married my grandmother and had 4 more children, and my father was the youngest of 9 children.
Wow.
So
Wow.
so my grandmother lived to be 93, I think, and she was very much alive when we were young children. And I have to say that the real moment, though, obviously I knew about him because we had pictures with the orchestra around the house, and my father would tell us stories. And but the main thing was in 1975, the Toronto Symphony Orchestra announced their 50th anniversary. Well, my grandmother had a fit because she had all this memorabilia. They were saying, 72, I'm sorry. So it would have been 1922, which is when Luigi von Kunitz took over the orchestra from my grandfather because it disbanded for 3 or 4 years during the war. So my grandmother was so up in arms. She actually, I should have had a copy. I didn't know you were going to mention it, but she wrote the Welsman Memoranda, and it's a very thin, soft cover book. It's a compilation of articles about Granddad and program covers and stories about Rachmaninoff as a guest artist and all these things. So she sent this book to everybody in the media saying 50th anniversary, no way, he had founded the orchestra in 1906. And so
Right.
it became a big deal, like a big deal. So the Toronto Symphony has sort of accepted it, but it goes against their grain because
Isn't
everything
that a
they,
shame?
yeah.
Such a shame.
Anyway, I'm not sure you're happy that you asked that question.
No, I find that fascinating because I was wondering about why there was a break from, I guess the symphony dissolved with his passing or sometime prior to it, but I knew there was a gap. And I
Oh,
was trying to figure out why. That's why I refer to it as the first iteration of the symphony.
well, my grandfather founded the orchestra in 1906, and in 1917 they disbanded, and he was funding the orchestra out of his own pocket for the last
Oh,
year. And so he finally he just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And when Luigi von Kunitz came along and said, look, I want to start the symphony up again in 22, my grandfather handed him the charter and just said, here, I have no
run with
use
it.
for this. And he
Yeah,
ended up going on to work with the conservatory in Toronto. So
right.
yeah, that's kind of the story. And then it started up from there. So a lot of people don't really know about the first iteration of it. So I like to tell them.
The Welsman years.
Yeah.
Well, I actually performed, now I'm going to tell you the truth, in 1999 when I released the Swing Ladies Swing album, which is an orchestra album dedicated to
Mhm.
Granddad. Oh, there you go. I was performing with the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. I have had 4 concerts with them, and I announced it from the stage about my granddad, and the audience gasped every time I said that because they just,
Blasphemy, blasphemy.
yeah, I know. I was wondering whether they loved me or hated me after that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm partial to that project. I know I'm sorry, Roger, but I've got to say, I'm partial to that project. Swing Ladies Swing. I was classically trained in 2 instruments, clarinet and bassoon.
Oh,
And
wow.
that project just really speaks to me. But in particular, I love Fever and Black Coffee. Those are my 2 favorite tracks from that project. So anyway, Roger, go ahead, buddy. Sorry.
I'm going to very quickly. This is slightly different from myself. Carol, we've been communicating with each other. A couple of months ago, I lost my dearest friend, Derek James, a wonderful jazz pianist. Been very good friends for over 30 years, and he was staying here, and he was looking along my wall of CDs, and he came across a small selection of your CDs, and he pulled it out, and he went, "Carol Welsman." He went, "I've met her. I've played some chords with her, all the rest of it." And I went, "Tell me more." And so he told me, of course, and the years went by, and I mean, it's knocked me for 6. It really has. But I got in touch with Julie, and I said, "What was those wonderful stories?" And I'm now. It was 1986 at Cannes, South France, and apparently they were appearing at the Lagunda, and you were appearing at the Ragtime with your trio. And then they used to finish their nightclub in 1986 and go straight down the coast to see you because they were in total admiration of yourself and see you. You just finished working in Paris, apparently. But the great story was that the bass player, Flavio, who worked with yourself, had a lovely Citroen. At the end of the night, you also used to pile into this Citroen and go on to the next gig. And I thought this is the most wonderful story. And the old Steve Martin from Boston, he told me, he said, "It's a small world, but I'd hate to paint it." And it makes me realize what a small world it is. There is Derek, my very, very dear friend, and I'm going to show you how dear. There's a picture of the 2 of us in
Oh my.
Alaska. He's dressed as a moose, I'm dressed as a reindeer, okay, and we did anything to earn money to pay our bar bill. Anyway, so dearly missed, and I know you would have loved to have seen this interview with yourself. Anyway, Kevin, back to
I'm
yourself.
so
Yeah,
sorry.
do you remember record any of those great times with the Citroen and that?
Do you know what well, I remember the Citroen, of course. How could I forget? But I do remember. It must have been Derek. Because there were very few musicians during the time there that I would have sat down and shown chords. Like I remember the connection being at the La Chunga was the club. That was it.
Yeah.
And it was open much later than our club. So
Yeah. 3, 4
I think
o'clock
we went to see
apparently.
him more than he came to see us. Sorry.
And there was Julie, of course, and I know she'll be watching this. So lovely. No, Kevin, back to yourself, sir.
Okay, Carol, you've recorded 13 albums, and your 14th project is due to release later this spring. But your 2017 Multilingual project for you was a tremendous success in Japan, becoming the #1 selling album for 6 consecutive months, and it peaked at #4 on their jazz charts. In 2019, you released another project in Japan, Volume 2. This is Carol Jazz Beauties in a trio format, which also became a #1 best-selling recording. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we interviewed Nicole Henry, who also has realized great commercial success in Japan like yourself, and she's toured on numerous occasions. Now, what is it about performing in Japan that distinguishes their jazz scene from the rest of the world? Because everything I've heard, it's an incredible jazz scene in Japan, even though you wouldn't think that given the differences in culturally the music, the Western versus the more Oriental type of sound, it's totally different, but nevertheless.
It's true. I'm asked this question a lot, and I think somebody was saying to me that because the Japanese people really they don't have a huge musical culture like we do in like classic. You think of classical music, you think of Europe, you think of Vivaldi, you think of Bach and all those wonderful classical composers. I just think that Japan the Japanese people have such a respect for music in general, and then jazz happens to be because they're a sophisticated people too, and
Yes.
jazz is a sophisticated musical
Well,
style.
of course it is. Yes.
And so I think that, there are some great Japanese jazz musicians now. Like it's become a much more popular form of music there. But it's amazing the respect that you feel when you're there, because the audiences, they just, you can hear a pin drop. You know, you never catch somebody talking while you're performing, which is the exact opposite of what happened even 2 weeks ago at Herb Alpert's Vibrato Club, which I love. I mean, it's a beautiful club and everything, but boy, to get people's attention. So this is the thing: is it's nice. Also, I have to say that these two albums you're speaking of have done very well there, because there was also a tribute to Benny Goodman, which we put out only there, Memories of You. And the reason being that they're co-produced by our Japanese tour promoter, who's also a producer, and he knew which songs to choose, which would go over well in you know the standards that did very well in Japan.
Right.
Well, what we're going to do, I mean, you mentioned about For You, and it is a fabulous album. Add it to your collection. We're going to momentarily take a break from the interview. We've got so much still to get through now. We're going to go back and we'll take a fabulous track from your beautiful album Journey, and it really is a fabulous track. We're going to play Route 66. Ladies and gentlemen, we got the most wonderful Carol Welsman sat there in a fabulous house there. We got Mr. G and we got myself. We're going to be back momentarily. Have a listen to this. This is Route 66 from the album Journey. Back in a moment.
If you ever plan to motor west, travel my way, take the highway, that's the best. Get your kicks on Route 66. It winds from Chicago to LA, more than 2,000 miles all the way. Get your kicks on Route 66. Now you go through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, and Oklahoma City looks so mighty pretty. You see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona, don't forget Winona, Kingman, Barstow, San Bernardino. Won't you get hip to this timely tip? When you make that California trip, get your kicks on Route 66. Now you go through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, and Oklahoma City looks so mighty pretty. See Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona, don't forget Winona, Kingman, Barstow, San Bernardino. Won't you get hip to this timely tip? When you make that California trip, get your kicks on Route 66. Get your kicks on Route 66. Get your kicks on Route 66.
So as Mr. G was alluding to, we got the 14th album coming out from our lovely guest tonight, Carol Welsman. You've just been listening to Journey from a few previous years ago from Route 66. So the 14th album is coming out. It's called 14, and we're looking forward to it. It's going to be released later on Just in Time Records, and it truly is a fabulous album. We can't wait to get our grubby little hands on it and play on our respective jazz shows and that. Accompanied along with guitar, bass, and a few tracks, including the drums. Carol, can you tell us more about this album to tease our followers more and more about this? Let's really get them going.
Sure. Well, strangely enough, the pandemic has had a really adverse effect on me, as it has on many people. But it especially made me kind of think that I would rather study Spanish and advanced Spanish at that, and get another language under my belt rather than practice the piano every day. So when my manager called last August and said, listen, I want you to record, he also owns the record label. He said, I want you to record another album. And I said, Jim, I think I don't have one foot out of the music business. I have 2 feet out. And he said, oh, no. You have to, let's focus here. And I wanted to make it just a very intimate sounding album, just bass and guitar. And then we decided to have drums on some of the songs. So it really inspired me to go back to my roots when I was in my teens, falling in love with jazz. And there were some special moments. For example, I've never recorded, I recorded it as a demo, but I have never officially recorded the song If You Could See Me Now. And back then I had a friend who gave me a recording of an instrumental version of it with a beautiful guitar solo by Ed Bickert, who passed away recently in Canada. But Ed Bickert, among jazz guitarists, is known the world around. And he played this beautiful solo on If You Could See Me Now. And so I learned the solo way back then. We couldn't find a recording of the solo. So I said to my guitar player, I will write it out for you. I'll sing it for you. And I want you to play it along with me.
Wow.
Singing. So it's a tribute to Ed Bickert. It's very unusual and it's a beautiful solo. So I'll give you that. I hope that wets your whistle. Another kind of fun thing was at the very last moment, I walked into the studio and my bass player was there and I said, Rémi-Jean, do you know the song Sometimes I'm Happy? And he said, oh yeah, in fact, I've been listening to an Oscar Peterson version of it where he doesn't go too far out of in the improv way. And he's quite inside for the choruses and choruses. And I said, why don't we just try and record that? Can we just do it in the key of G? And he said, sure. So we literally turned the record button on, went in, did one take, and that's what you're going to hear on the album. And we completely winged it. He said, oh, I'll play the intro that Oscar plays. So I overdubbed a vocal on it later because I had to learn it. And then we trade and we do little solos, like 4 bars each. And anyway, so it's lots of fun. One last thing is the opening song is Pick Yourself Up. And I almost drove off the road when I heard Nat King Cole sing this song. It's 1957, and I think it's George Shearing playing with him. The arrangement is sublime. And I said, I got to do this arrangement. So I lifted the whole thing and did it in my key. And the guitar, we don't have the same instrumentation. They have a whole orchestra, but it's very effective. And the piano solo is a la Shearing. And so I'm paying tribute to a few great musicians. And
well, I know from Kevin and myself and all our followers, we're just anxiously waiting to get hold of it so we can promote it. We're looking forward to that. Kevin, a question from yourself, sir.
Yeah, Carol, in addition to Swing Lady Swing, which, again, we talked about it being dedicated to your grandfather, you also have projects that you've dedicated music to Peggy Lee, which is your 2016 project, I Like Men, Reflections of Miss Peggy Lee. In a 2014, and you'd mentioned it too, the 2014 Benny Goodman project, Memories of You, which celebrated the 100th birth anniversary of Benny Goodman, featuring woodwind specialist Ken Peplowski, which I just loved, especially your version of Sing, Sing, Sing. So, it's interesting. When we look at the music of Peggy Lee, we look at Benny Goodman, and you just talked about a little bit about preferred arrangements for songs. I know you're you love to compose. But when you approach the old standards, how much of an opportunity do you literally do a little bit of arranging to create your own? Because you just cover everything so beautifully, you have to be actively involved in those arrangements, I would assume.
Oh, very much so.
Okay.
I have a little studio set up in the other room, and it's a keyboard, and I work in a program called Logic, and it's
Hmm.
it's pretty primitive what I do, but I play bass lines in, and I actually create the arrangement at the piano, and I sort of conceive the idea of how am I going to do this song so that it sounds different from everybody else singing the song.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's been a sort of something I've done from the very beginning of my recording career. And I guess it's just because of listening to so much music, and I've listened to a lot of pop music and funk music, and so I'm influenced by a lot of different styles. But um, this time, I must say, on this new album, some of the arrangements we really came up with in the studio. I had the idea of it, but when you don't have drums, we recorded I Concentrate on You with a sort of a poinciana calypso groove. And
Mhm.
so all of a sudden everybody had to change gears right on the spot. So my little studio is great to do pre-production, and we figure out, okay, who's going to solo when. And so yes, it's very well planned, because I don't want to suddenly be, especially when we only have 3 days to record. It's really
Right.
quick.
Right.
The one thing I love, I mean, we hear all these no disrespect, the young acts that come out through these different talent shows and that, and all the music is doubled, multi-tracked. And of course, when they go live, the fans go, well, you don't sound like that on the record. And of course, that's the one thing fabulous about it. I've seen YouTube moments of you in concert, and you are just stunning in concert. When you sit there, it's just like listening to the record itself. It's fabulous. So, Carol, you've performed with such musical greats such as, ready for this, Stevie Wonder, Gordon Lightfoot, we've just alluded to, Herbie Hancock, did a duet with Herbie Hancock, and you also President Bill Clinton. You speak English, French, Spanish, Italian fluently. Now, actually, I'm a bilingual illiterate. I can't read and write in two languages, so you beat me on that one there. Now, you record also the songs also in different languages as well. So can you please tell us more about working with some of these amazing greats, and also your multilingual skill and the advantages to the world at large?
Well, first of all, I have to pinch myself, because the list of people you just mentioned are among my favorite musicians of all time. And they were people I really did want to meet and and chat with and play music. I mean, Stevie Wonder and I actually played My Cherie Amour together on the piano and sang in harmony. And I said to the bass player, this is a once in a lifetime thing. This will probably never happen again. And he sang a ballad when we sat 5 feet behind him. And again, we said, this will never happen again. So I feel lucky to have met these people. They've been great influences on me, for sure. And I guess the language um, thing it started because of living in Europe for almost 8 years when I was in my 20s. And so, and of late, because I live in Los Angeles, it really helps if you speak Spanish here, because
Yeah.
1 in every 4 people is Latino, and so and I get my way a lot more than most people do because of that. But anyway, no. But that aside, I mean, it just opens. It's so enriching, because you learn. I mean, we have a housekeeper who has been with us 9 years, and she's really the person who's corrected me the most in Spanish. And she and I learn about the Guatemalan culture, and she learns about things from me, because I'm Canadian, but I live in the U.S. and I'm a dual citizen, and just so many opportunities. I have a Spanish tutor who is from Mexico City. She comes from a completely different background. She told me things about Mexico I had never known. So it brings, I believe, more to the music too. And if you sing in a different language and you mean what you're singing, people they go bananas.
Yeah, it's the phrase. It's the phrasing. It's the knowledge of the language that allows you to do the phrasing in a way that you don't come across as it's just rote. It's something that you're actually performing.
Yeah,
And that makes all the difference. And you speak Portuguese too, or I know you've recorded songs in Portuguese.
I don't speak Portuguese, but since learning Spanish in more depth,
It's like
because I
first
attended
cousin.
a school as well. Sorry?
I said Portuguese is like first cousin, you know.
Well, it is exactly. And so the knowledge of Italian and French have helped me with Spanish, but
Yes,
Portuguese, I know we were down filming a documentary where we did the duet. We did the duet with Herbie Hancock in Toronto, but it was part of the same documentary.
right.
And when we were in Brazil for 10 days, and by the end of 10 days, people were speaking to me and I understood them. So it would take me a couple of months probably. It's very
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
Well, Carol, you've been deemed a distinguished alumnus by your alma mater, Berklee College of Music in Boston, where you majored in piano performance. Now, while at Berklee, did you have any classmates or professors that inspired you to pursue your career as a composing pianist and vocalist? And then I have another little quick question to ask you right after that. But did you rub elbows with anybody that you're going to blow our socks off with, or?
Well, I thought he was pretty special. It was Michel Legrand's son who was going to
Ooh,
school
that's
at
good
Berkeley.
enough.
I know. His name is Hervé, and I had a French keyboard class professor who knew Hervé, and all he said to me was, just don't tell him that he's Michel Legrand's son. He hates to be referred to as his son. But of course, his relationship with his father was great, and he was a
Mm,
beautiful composer, just like his dad. Same style, so musical. So he actually got me the opportunity to go to Paris on a grant from the Canada
right.
Council to study with Christiane Legrand, who was Michel's sister. And Christiane, I had a very bad vocal condition back then. I had polyps on my vocal cords, and I
Mm,
thank Christiane every day of my life for saving my life. And she was absolutely wonderful. So I would say that that's a pretty good connection.
absolutely. Well, I know that you've also written lyrics for Celine Dion, Ray Charles, of all people, and Chrissy Hynde of the Pretenders. So what I wanted to ask you is that when you're writing lyrics, do you prefer to have the music and write the lyrics to the music, or are you just comfortable with writing lyrics and letting them create the music after the fact? How does your compositions, how do they come about
Do you know what?
as a
Actually,
lyricist? As a lyricist,
from the beginning, because I never really thought I was going to get into writing lyrics, but I was commissioned to write some songs with a famous composer and producer in Europe. He was on top of the world in the pop business, and that's how I met Celine Dion in his recording studio
wow.
before she could speak English, of all things. But
Mm,
anyway, so it was always music first and lyrics second, and I didn't really compose much music up until about 10 years ago or so, 15 years ago, when I started recording. So all the other lyrics that I've written are to songs that have been handed to me. And so I don't know, I've never come up with a lyric before the music. I guess I could try.
it's poetry, obviously, but the music. So yeah, you should give it a whirl.
So,
I need to
Carol,
get
you
inspired.
toured the world extensively, performing with trio, with big band, pop symphonies, orchestra concerts, the lot, captivating audiences and receiving, rightly so, standing ovations. So, and that is, we've already heard about Japan, Canada, and right across Europe. Very quick question. Do you prefer live, studio, or writing new materials? What's your preference?
Mm.
Oh gosh, that's a tough question.
All the above. All the above.
All of the above. Can I say that?
Yeah.
No, no.
Well,
You got to pick one.
I have to say, I have an amazing band. They're all Latinos, and
Mm.
they all play like dreams. And they've been in my band for years and years and years. And so, given if I had to choose, I would say live. But I've also performed a lot live, and now I'm pretty happy sitting writing music.
I'm going to just jump in very, very quickly because Kevin doesn't. I think he's going to know as I say that. I mean, internationally, you've sold over 1,000 units in Canada alone, making you one of the most recorded artists on sales in Canada alone. And bear in mind some of the great artists that have come out of Canada. But your album, Just in Time, was produced by Yellow Jacket's Jimmy Haslip. Now, Jimmy was a former guest here on the show from a few months ago, and we had a great conversation. When you started looking through the catalogue of his music, it was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought I'd just drop that one in, but yeah, Jimmy, so a great former guest. Kevin, question for yourself, sir.
Yeah, Carol, your 1996 project, Lucky to Be Me, features an original composition, This Lullaby, and you know where I'm going with this. On September the 11th of 2004, you were invited to perform this lullaby live on the Larry King TV show to commemorate the lost lives on 9/11 with the terrorist attack on the Twin Towers at the World Trade Center. The production, the video, and the actual footage of that tragic day and your incredible performance was very moving. It was powerful, and it was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Obviously, that segment involved, you were talking earlier about, all of the planning that goes into a production. That particular live performance obviously required a tremendous amount of coordination in planning. I mean, you had studio quality sound through TV, which was amazing. You also had the videotape that they had generated that they played in conjunction with your music. Your interaction with Larry was great. Tell us a little bit more about the backstory about that performance.
Well, you're not going to believe this, but I had no idea. I was told that I was going to close the show with the song. I had no idea Larry King was going to interview me on camera. So I look back at that footage and sort of cringe, because I would like to have said, something a little different than I said, but but anyway, I thought
it was amazing. I thought.
Oh, well, thank you. But
to be ad-libbed, I mean, that speaks volumes too. So.
Well, they had a beautiful piano in the studio, and their lighting was spectacular, and they were all set. They have it down over there. So
right,
great opportunity. It was really nice to meet Larry too.
It was a beautiful performance. Beautiful performance.
Okay, last quick one from myself. With Herbie Hancock, you hosted the 2000 Billboard Jazz Awards, and in 2005, you were the star of a documentary, The Language of Love, filmed in Brazil, Italy, and North America, where you performed with Herbie Hancock. We've already alluded. Can you tell us, because the lady time is not on our side, unfortunately, can you tell us more about that amazing documentary?
Well, yes, I wish it had aired more than it did, because it was so beautifully done. Two producers came to me and said, "We'd like to do a documentary on your career, and if you had to choose three artists, who would you like to be featured with?" And I said, Herbie Hancock, Javan in Brazil, and maybe Romano Musumara in Italy.
Yeah, why not?
All the music for. Sorry?
I said, why not? Ask for it, right?
And so, anyway, so I got my wish. I mean, down we went to Brazil, and Javan walked in the studio, and I just about flipped.
Oh my God.
And we sang together, and he's a huge star. I can't. Oh. Well, Oscar Castroneves was producing the documentary, and the portion in Brazil, and we went to the Ipanema bar, and we're looking at, he's telling me about the girl from Ipanema, Eloisa, who he knew, and all this stuff. So I had to sort of pinch myself, but I'm so glad that those pieces are on YouTube and people can tune in. Right. They're on my channel, so especially the Herbie piece is really something. And we had such a ball co-hosting the awards. We were totally unprepared, and and as the night went on, T.S. Monk came up to me after at the awards in 2000, and because at one point Herbie and I were locking elbows and turning sideways to read the cue cards and do all this stuff. So T.S. Monk came up after the show and he said, "How long have you known Herbie Hancock?" I looked at my watch. I said, 8 hours. That was it.
That's awesome. Well, Carol, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. We'll close out our interview with a very stunning song from your 2020 project, Dance With Me. But before I introduce the track, I must say There are times in our lives, if we have truly loved someone and in doing so laid our souls bare, making us totally vulnerable, the pain and loneliness with the lost one, with a lost love can be overwhelming. Your lyrics and your performance on Yesterday I Heard the Rain rivals Ghost in This House by Alison Krauss.
Oh, I love
Maybe You'll Be There by Diana Krall, and I Never Went Away by Claire Martin.
Oh, wow.
I think that it's a tremendous song. The lyrics are beautiful. Yeah, it's just an incredible, incredible piece. And that's what we'll be closing the show out with today.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you. That means a lot. And I don't know why there's something about that lyric. It's Jean Lee's too, who wrote the English version, but it's such a stunning song. It's easy when the music is that beautiful. If you can really dive into the depth of the emotion,
Right.
it's a pleasure to sing.
Well, Kevin actually got me to listen to it again, and I went back and I listened to it again. And bear in mind, with my loss of Derek in it, and I went absolutely fabulous. And Mr. G was totally correct with that. Carol, where can our followers buy more of your music? Where can they download it? Where can they purchase your wonderful music?
I think on my website there are links to each album, to Apple Music or iTunes, and also the retail links. I think everything is pretty well there. It's easy. We've set it up so that you can. I believe that you can just click over and download an album.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined, we thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and chat to ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the fabulous Carol Welsman.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you both.
Thank you, Carol. We enjoyed it very much.
From everybody here,
go ahead, Roger.
I was going to say, from everybody here, Kevin, do you want to say something? Because time is running out.
No, I was just gonna remind everybody that the final track is going to be Yesterday I Heard the Rain from Carol's amazing 2020 project, Dance With Me.
From everybody here, take care, stay safe there. From everybody here, good night.
Yesterday I heard the rain whispering your name, asking where you'd gone. It fell softly from the clouds on the silent crowds as I wandered on. Out of doorways, black umbrellas came to pursue me. Faceless people, as they passed, were looking through me. No one knew me. Yesterday I shut my eyes, face up to the skies, drinking in the rain. But your image still was there, floating in the air, brighter than a flame. Yesterday I saw a city full of shadows without pity, and I heard the steady rain whispering your name, whispering your name. Esta tarde vi llover, gente correr y no estabas tú. El otoño vi llegar al mar y cantar y no estabas tú. Ya no sé cuánto me quieres, si me extrañas o me engañas. Yo solo sé que vi llover, vi gente correr y no estabas tú. And I heard the steady rain whispering your name, whispering your name.